Hello, I hope everyone's doing well. Let's take a breath together. Thanks. So, I thought I'd talk about astrology for a moment. It is November 1st, 2021. This year is almost over. But right now, it's about new moon time. And new moon is always a fun time because it's about setting intentions. What are you working on? What are you cultivating? What would you like to see happen? So you work on those things. It's new beginnings. We have another cycle of the moon happening. And we can flow with that. So it's a great time to set intention. The moon is something many of us always talk about. But something we might not always talk about is an occurrence that is taking place right now. It's called a stellium. Stellium. I may not be pronouncing it correctly. But what it is 3 or more planets are in a certain astrological sign. Right now, the sign I'm referring to is Aquarius, and the planets are Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Mercury, and the Sun. So that's more than 3 planets. So therefore, that's pretty powerful. In one sign, Aquarius. Aquarius, what does that mean? Well, when I think about Aquarius, I think about group orientation, so very group oriented, friendly, progressive, original, rebellious. What else? Independent, free spirited, humanitarian. I like that term a lot for Aquarius. These are characteristics. Some people, don't believe in astrology at all. I guess I really wouldn't have believed in it so much if I didn't have someone approach me years ago. And I met this person at a spiritualist church, and he came up to me and told me about things that were happening or have happened in my life, and emotions and feelings that were in my energy body that I wasn't exactly sharing with people. So when he told me that, I was pretty astonished. And he wasn't exactly a medium. He was more of a he could see. He could see the aura, the colors, the patterns. Something that Aquarius is, it's that air sign, it's the mental aspect. And I would say this person, he had a very mental aspect. And our energy body, it's almost like our mind all around us. I mean, we have the physical body, the emotional body, the spiritual body, and the mental body. But these have different patterns and shapes, and sometimes some of these might be more distorted. They may be darker in colors. There might be struggle. And sometimes it may shift completely. It can be brighter and cheerful and perfectly shaped, geometric shaped. A lot of healthy cells are geometrical shaped. We have things like the Fibonacci sequence that shows up in seashells and flowers and all kinds of things. That's a whole nother talk and a whole nother world. But it's all beautiful and it all connects. But the point is, he knew things about me that I didn't understand how he knew. And he explained to me that he saw certain things in my energy bodies, around my body. So it was like me wearing my mind outside of myself, and he just saw it. I don't think he told me everything he saw, but it was enough to make me be like, wow. And then he, continued to talk about astrology and told me he's been studying charts for a long time. And then I thought, well, astrology, that's kind of like, the things I used to think were fun to read, your horoscope in the newspaper or in a magazine or online, and you think, oh, okay, well, that's kind of generic or general. Does it really refer to me specifically? But when you look into it and you look up your actual chart and you start seeing like where your planets are and in what sign and what house and how that relates to now and where the current planet placement is and where it was when you were born and certain characteristics. I mean, some of it's almost like taking a personality test for psychology, or maybe like a certain job interview will have you take one. Um, there's just certain things that stick out, that may pertain to you. And I didn't continue to study astrology as deeply as I could have because there were just so many things to study at the time. So I'm not, extremely versed in astrology, but I would say that I have some knowledge of it, and it has pertained to life more than I ever thought it would. I do recall having a psychology professor in college who, totally disagreed with astrology. And, that's because she probably never had something like my experience happen. And she knows research and tested theories and, has the data to back it up. And that's what she knows. So for me, that was my experience, and not everybody has all the same experiences. So, anyhow, that made me think that there might be more to astrology. And when I found out what my chart was, I realized there was. But let's get back to what I was talking about. So, Aquarius. Aquarius is ruling planet. So each sign has a planet that's associated with it, referred to as the ruling planet. Aquarius is Uranus. Uranus is unique. It's unexpected, individuality, spontaneous, impulsive, innovative, and nonconformist. Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. So these are some of the things I would use to describe Aquarius and Uranus. And not everybody may, some people may not use that language to describe those things, but that's how I see it. And with all those other planets in that sign right now, this is a very influential time in that matter. There's also a conjunction happening right now with the sun and the moon. and they're in conjunction with an asteroid called Pallas Athena. And if you're familiar with Greek mythology, Pallas Athena stands for wisdom and femininity. And it's a time that we do need that feminine wisdom in the world. There's a group called the Grandmothers Group. The grandmothers, and there's a woman that has written 4 books and started groups which have now sprung up all over the world, and it's just mainly women, but some men, getting together, discussing teachings, and deepening their connection to each other, this world, our ancestors, and the love that we naturally are, and going in deeper to that each time and spreading it out even further. They cast the net of light into the world, which is a beautiful act to do. In scientific study, the net has actually been proven to exist. I know in Buddhism there is an image of this, and basically it's just our connection to each other in the light which we naturally are. It's very beautiful. Well, there's a little bit about the current astrology, so you can take away whatever fits you, and what doesn't, don't. Anyhow, I had a talk earlier today with a friend. We went on a walk. We sat down and we talked for a minute, and he mentioned that it was difficult to stay on the middle way or the middle ground. And I've talked a lot about that with people. I've heard the teaching from a abbot at a Buddhist temple. And I've read a lot about that. It comes up, the middle way, the middle way. Life is dynamic. Life is always shifting. So we have to find where that middle way is. But I think a lot of it is not focusing on the difficulty of the middle way, but just walking it. I've done some sweat lodges and ceremonies with the Lakota tradition and a shaman in years past. And there's mention of walking the red road, and I feel like that's comparable to the middle way, the path, the way. Many traditions speak about this. And the way really just refers to the way home. Home being vast and infinite. And we're all looking for that way home. And we find it every time we get closer to ourselves, our true selves. And we let go of our conditioning. I received a message the other day. It was from a woman who I haven't had any contact with in many years. I have not spoken to her. I have not seen her. Maybe I did see her one time in passing, but I don't recall us really speaking. And it was since high school, actually. I used to give her a ride to school sometimes. She was younger than I was, and I had a friend who lived down the street from me, and I started driving before they did. So sometimes I would, take them to school, And they were happy about that. They didn't have to ride the bus, and they got to get a ride to school. And, I thought that was a nice thing to do. So I did that. At the time, I had a purple neon. That was my first car, and I loved it. I loved having a purple car. It was fun. I was the only person in my high school who had a purple neon. That's for sure. Anyhow, the point is, I received a message from her the other day. I think it was, I don't know, 2 days ago or so. And she said she had a dream and she wanted to share it with me. She described it as she had dark clothes on. She was walking in a very dark neighborhood, and cars kept almost hitting her as she was walking. So, right there, it sounds like she was probably scared. She said she couldn't see where she was going, and she felt like she was going blind. There was only one weird building open, and they were selling kids' crafts. She went in there to take a break from the hell. She described it as, she said, take a break from the hell. And when she left the building and she went back out into the hell, and she saw me. And I was sitting in the back of a white car in the middle of all this darkness. So there I was in the back of a white car. And she yelled my name, and I gave her a ride. I gave her a ride out of that hell. And she thanked me for the dream lift. Now, that's just one person's experience, and I'm no dream expert, so I don't know exactly what that means. I had a few things come up that could possibly be true about that dream. But I think that's for me to share, perhaps with her. And the only reason I'm talking about any of these people and what they've told me, like my friend about the middle way and this woman about her dream, is because you don't know who they are, because I wouldn't expose someone like that. But I do feel that these things that come up, this is just, the last 2 days for me where something has come up with certain people. These are lessons, these are experiences, these are things to learn from, to look at, and then let them go. So, what I saw from that dream is when we suffer, sometimes it can be dark, but there's always the light that we can turn to, and the light that we can choose to walk into. She decided to get into that car. She didn't have to, but she wanted to. It's like we don't have to do anything, but what do we want? And better yet, why do we want it? And when we start asking ourselves those questions, we get down to the root of why we do what we do. And sometimes we don't realize it. We just keep doing things. And often it can be because of our habitual mind, habitual patterns. But I was very touched when she shared that dream. I've had other people share similar dreams. Not similar as that's the same dream or the same things happen, but where they were able to turn to me and I was able to help. And I just find that very beautiful. Because here's someone I haven't spoken to in so many years. But it just reassured me of our true connection to everyone on this planet. I realized it was only a dream. I don't give it complete power, but I see the love that emanates from such a thing, and I find complete beauty in such. But it's important not to put such things on a pedestal either. Because when you give too much power to something, if you say something is so absolutely beautiful and you have to have it, well, now you're craving. And if something's so extremely beautiful, well, that means its opposite exists too, right? Something is extremely ugly. Because if we start thinking something is so great, well, then there must be something else that isn't. And really finding the middle way and the middle ground of that. That doesn't mean that you don't like anything or you don't dislike anything, because you're still human and you will have those experiences, but you can choose to have less of them. And you can see what that feels like. And once you experience that center of just being, without having to judge, without having to comment, without having to, I don't know, be manic about something, there's peace in that. Maybe manic isn't the best word. Some people have those expressions, just like obsessions or things of that nature, but the point is not making things super high or super low, and finding that middle ground. And the more we find it, the easier it is to be with it more often. And once you feel that peace inside you, you'll understand why. And you won't have to have someone like me tell you about it, because you'll know. And sometimes it's hard to talk about those things because it's really an experience that's needed. Doesn't mean you should go grasp for it, because that's not how to get it. Just do simple things like observe your mind and your reactions. So, if you feel that you absolutely love this piece of chocolate and you have to have it every day, start asking yourself, why am I having this piece of chocolate every day? Am I trying to fill some void in me? Am I trying to look for an escape? Am I upset and I want to eat goodies? Why am I upset? What am I escaping? What kind of void have I created in my perception that I feel like I need to fill? Is there a craving? Something I have to have? In Buddhism, there are these descriptions and images of hungry ghosts, and they're not extremely attractive. They have very skinny necks and big bellies, and when on retreat, or if you are cultivating in this way, either before or after a meal. So before, if you want to put a little tray out and then put some of your food, maybe one little piece, onto the plate, and then just not touch that. Or if you want to eat your food and just leave a little bit untouched. And then you can do a little ritual for the hungry ghost. Or you don't have to do the ritual, you can just offer it up. But the intention is there. It's nice if you do the chant and all that goes with it. It's not a very long thing to do. But what that is you're giving to the hungry ghosts who are desiring, who are craving, who haven't satisfied their hunger, who are just lingering around, suffering. And the intention is to relieve their suffering for a certain amount of time. There's something called bodhicitta, and it's kind of cultivating that. It's helping beings not suffer. Some of the imagery describes it as they can't even actually eat the food, that it just like burns up in their mouth, or like they have fire breath, but they're so craving and desiring that they just grasp for it and want it, and it brings them satisfaction just to get. And it helps them realize the truth, and it helps them see compassion by this offering from us that we're willing to give so that they may receive, even if they can't fully partake. But their suffering is so great that they don't realize this. Yesterday was Halloween, and it's important to remember that we don't need to run from the darkness. We don't need to run from the fear. There was a haunted house in our neighborhood. We went in, and kids were scared. It wasn't very scary. It was just, there was a kid under a table, which they decorated like a coffin, and then they put candy inside of the coffin, and you had to go there to grab your piece of candy. And then there was a young boy or girl, I'm not sure which one, but it was a small hand that reached out and would touch your leg, and you didn't know that they were there, so it scared kids. And it was that factor of not knowing and being surprised. And some people would say not to participate in Halloween. I choose to participate, but I kind of make it more fun, and just kind of have a good time dressing up without all the blood and gore and all that. That's just not me anymore. I used to watch scary movies, and I used to think those things were fun. But now I just don't have as much interest in that kind of thing. And it's not because I'm afraid of it, it's just, it doesn't speak to my consciousness. And that's okay. And it's okay that it does for some people. I remember sneaking and watching Pet Sematary and It at my friend's house when I was very young. And I was so scared. I would look at the drain in the shower, and I would think it was going to come up, Pennywise would come up through the drain and with its balloons, and it was creepy, and pets. I loved pets. And then I watched that movie and I was like, oh. And now I can laugh about it. At that time, it wasn't so funny because I was young, and that imprinted in my mind and in my consciousness. And we need to be aware of what we're putting there, what we give power to, what we take in. Because even if we don't realize it on a conscious level, those things do things in our subconscious. So the storylines and the things we watch and what we participate in, they do have an impact on us. Now, things we can do to clear those things is maybe mantras, chant, meditation, release things. Help the mind move the energy. A lot of people watch that show Squid Games. I'm not a fan, but a lot of people are. I think about what that says about society. That's another topic. But some people really enjoy it, and that's okay. So, the one thing I do want to say is there are Buddhist practitioners who have worked in graveyards and helped beings move on from this world. And do Buddhists celebrate Halloween? Yeah, sure, if they choose to. Do Christians celebrate Halloween? Sure, yeah, if they choose to. And that's fine. In Buddhism, there are these stories about these spirits that would do things to people's crops or mess with people in certain ways. And then a Buddha would come in and help that spirit transmute from the darkness to the light. And suddenly that spirit would guard and make sure the farm was protected and everything was well. And now suddenly they're helping because they're no longer suffering, because they needed compassion, because they needed to be seen for what they are, which is more than suffering. So, moving from darkness to light, shining the light on the shadow. The light has no shadow. It's a beautiful thing, and we all have it. We are all one mass consciousness, very interconnected. There are more things that came up for me just now, but this video is already a half hour long, and I'll save it for another day. Be well. May you be happy. May you be well. May all beings be well. Amitabha.